All right, everybody, welcome back to the Arkansas Weather Blog here at KTV.com. It is always a great pleasure to have, we did this once a year usually it seems now, but meteorologist Joe Bastardi with weatherbell.com, long-range forecasting, and what we want to know here in Arkansas, Joe. Once we get to 7 days or 10 days, after that I just kind of say, Joe's got it. The seasonal forecasts, I try to follow you, Joe, in the MJO, the Southern Oscillation Index, all these things that you look at, the analogs, the antilogs, and putting together a winter forecast. And what you've come up with this year, I'm going to show you just a little a preview here. We average 3.1 inches of snow here in Little Rock each winter. The average high is 52.6 inches. The average low 52.6 degrees, 33.1 degrees the average low, and the average temperature is 42.8 degrees. So keep in mind, 3.1 inches of snow, I could blink one night and we get that.
Yeah. Well, the big thing about it is I think there'll be more than the norm this year. And if, let's say you have 5 or 6 chances a year, suppose you have 8 or 9, you're probably going to get more than the normal amount of snow. We've seen this century in the United States. So I think our prime 2 analogs this century are 2002, 2003, and 2009, 2010. The winters in the 70s are showing up in there too. And it could turn extraordinarily cold and extraordinarily stormy for much of the United States this winter, at least for a 30 to 45-day period. Now in August, we're keeping that forecast for now, but it would not be surprising to me if when we finalize it, we make it even colder. Now, of course, when it first came out, there was a lot. It's interesting to note that about 3 weeks later, one of the farmers' almanacs came out with a similar forecast. And people. What's weird is, Weatherbell's not. Takes a look at us. Of course, I can't offer enough gratitude to you, Todd, for putting the word out there. But Farmer's Almanac says something. I have people come back and say, "Hey, what do you think of this forecast?" And the Almanac, it looks like a lot like the one we issued about 3 weeks earlier. Now, we always issue our forecast before the one that gets attention anyway. We had a really good forecast last year. I mean, I look at that skill last year, and we had 2 off years in that even though I thought the 500 millibar pattern lined up pretty good, there wasn't the cold available. It's likely due to the warmth of the planet. And it does have, when you have a super Niño coming along, it just shoots up so much warm air into the atmosphere that some of the reactions that you may commonly use change. That being said, when I look at our Pioneer model at Weatherbell that's been developed, it was outstanding in 13, 14, 14, 15, and last year. It was just, and this year, the combination of his model, and Todd knows that's the main steering current, or half the atmosphere is below, half the atmosphere is above, so we use 500 millibars. It is just rock solid great. And it's to look out for the cold winter, and the blended analogs that we're using 2002, 2006, 9, 10, and 14, 15. We have a sea surface temperature pattern that looks very similar to setting up. And there's a lot of excitement on my part because of what I see going on, believe it or not, in the Indian Ocean. There's certain phases of the Madden-Julian oscillation that are probably going to favor United States. So I've got a very bullish forecast out. My team members, we just all work together. We have an interesting way of coming to a conclusion. Let's say you and I, Todd, were talking about the winter. Or let's say, hey, Todd, I want your winter forecast. I don't want you to tell me what you're thinking. I just want your forecast. You give me your forecast, and I give my forecast. I see where we are intersecting without talking to each other. And then after, when you talk, let's say we have a common intersection or something, chances are that's going to be the place to really jump on. And then you smooth out the edges in the talking and that's what we do. So hopefully this is going to give people an edge.
All right, yeah. And by the way, just to let you know, there are a couple technical problems, but we're going to plug through here with the Skype connection. This is the best we've had it. Joe and I given it a couple tries to do the Skype connection, and but this is the best we've had it. So we're going to keep going. But Joe, I've been showing the maps here what you've been referring to here at the snowfall being a 133 to 167% of average right through the south central United States from Texas to D.C. And go ahead.
Well, that just says it snows 4.5. To take it literally, it says there's 4.5 inches of snow. But here's how I grade that. If there's under the amount I'm forecasting, then that gets us like a double weight against it. You see what I'm saying? Let's say if nothing falls, then the biggest bust that I could have is 4.5 inches on nothing, right?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's downside limit. I would if there's 10 rock this year, I'm not going to feel bad at all about that forecast. I'm going to say that puts you on the side of where snow is going to go. If there's no snow at all, I'll feel very bad. Or if it snows under what I'm thinking, I get. In other words, the penalty for scoring this forecast is skewed to what is actually forecasted. The midpoint does not start at 3.1.
Okay.
5. I got to get at least 4.5 inches of snow. So let's say 4.5 to 6 falls. I don't think that's a bad forecast. If 15 falls, who's going to come out with a forecast with like this in August anyway?
Yeah.
Do you think right now if you went to other forecasters and say, well, what's the percentage of? Well, maybe they would know. I don't know. Maybe they'd be seeing it. You know, I made a statement and roundly played with. You know, I sort of like it when someone does it. If someone criticizes me, I keep my mouth shut because somehow if I keep my mouth shut, it turns out to be right. But you know, people were Texas and say, well, I think it's going to snow again this year in Houston. Snow and ice again in Houston. And have it happen 2 years in a row. First of all, it happened last year, and I didn't have an above normal year in Houston last year. So that's surprising to snow that much here. But if we get it this year, then I think that's a big deal when you tell people along the Gulf Coast they may see snow in the winter.
Oh, that's huge. And if we get 15 inches of snow in Arkansas, nobody's going to criticize you. We will welcome it with open arms, and so will the kids so they can get out of school. But
you know, look, at least in the heat of the summer, although it cooled off in August, in the heat in summer, I mean, this is the most important thing in this forecast is the fact that I think we've discovered another method to see an El Nino, this time almost a year away. We started to get based on Southern Oscillation Index drops during the winter season, and that's been showing up since the Great Super Niño 97-98. There seems to be an increased sensitivity to something like that. And you know, Todd knows what the multivariate ENSO index is. That's sort of the golden rule for meteorologists. They look at that, and as of the end of it said that no El Nino should come on, and yet our SOI methodology from last March said we're going to have an El Nino coming on. So it would be something that, as far as the meteorology goes. I think that it would be something that I can say, well, hey, look, you actually contributed something to the field. Because all I ever do is build off the people who came before me. Well, I mean, that's what I do. I mean, all this stuff is really out there, and it's a matter of trying to get it together. When you get a guy like DeLeo working with you, he does things like not only does he take the winners that he will get the winners that look opposite of this one. That solution, the anti-log is to the analog. See what I'm saying? So he's doing things that you know, the professor on Gilligan's Island would have done. Well, I don't know if you're watching Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, well, I'm showing our age here. That's this is not your typical El Nino, though. What your forecast is the Modoki El Nino, which has different.
Yeah, the
Modoki, which is a warming of what region? El Nino 3-4, is that right?
3.4 is there's more in the Central Pacific than the Eastern Pacific, and that focuses the upward motion back toward the date line. And you think about it, if you have pressures lower off the West Coast, let's say when you have very warm close to the West Coast of South America, you tend to lower pressures over the Western United States, which will literally connect the trough in the Pacific to the trough in the Southwest. So a sweeping trough and a general west to southwest flow in front of it over the eastern part of the United States. When you have the kind of El Nino we're forecasting, what will happen is the water will be warmer further west. Low pressures will be off the west coast of North America. Okay, so they'll be off the west coast of North America. When that happens, you allow for ridging in the western United States and a sympathetic trough condition. In addition, the very warm water in the Gulf of Alaska showing up again loves to pump that ridge over the northwest part of Canada. And the fact that we have residual high water vapor, they're very, very slight, but they work much greater in the Arctic on the temperature and at 500. All this favors blocking over northwest Canada. So what I've set up here is a northwest Canadian blocking over the top. Got the deep Gulf of Alaska trough and a new trough that develops over the south central part of the United States. Big high pressure can build across Canada. Low pressure will tend to move and out in the water with a negative North Atlantic oscillation. And I've got the cold eastern Indian Ocean. That shuts down convection in the eastern Indian Ocean, which favors our MJO in phase 2 and 3, and those are the cold phases during the winter. And anything that tries to go into 4, 5, and 6, which are warm phases, folks, what will happen is those love to fall apart. They'll fall apart quickly, and they'll try to yank back in. The convection will reform, and the MJO it'll try to reform back into those cold phases. Right. So that's the theory, and hopefully it all works. If it works, it's going to be one heck of a winter for a lot of people.
Well, I've got the map here showing the weatherbell.com winter temperatures, and you got in the Pacific Northwest 1 to 5 degrees above average. So that's that ridging you're talking about up through Alaska now. And then, of course, you get the cold air drainage into the central and eastern United States. What part of the winter do you see weighted as to be the worst part? You mentioned it's going to be a 30 to 45-day window of the worst of winter. How do you think that this is going to evolve?
I think it's going to come out of the gate pretty fast, maybe for a while, but you'll probably center the worst 3 months on February. Although, look, this may run the table. I mean, what you're seeing evolving now is the beginning. Now you say, well, it's warm, right? Listen, I go pretty quickly. I think you're going to have a tropical cyclone come up out of the Gulf of Mexico. I think you have Sergio come across Mexico to go pull the trough east, and that's going to be the first about 10 days. October 2002. It happened in 77. I can remember 77. We actually had some kind of subtropical storm come right up the eastern seaboard in early October, and then we got plowed here in Columbus State weekend over at State College, believe it or not, knocked down trees and everything else. And the trees were green. It was like there was no fall, and all of a sudden it's snowing, right? And so I think you're going to see the beginning of the evolution. You know, there was a brilliant meteorologist I worked with back in the 80s named Ed Berry. I don't know where Ed was now. He was the chief science officer at Wichita, Kansas. And I remember he said something to me one time. He said, fall trough, winter ridge, fall, wherever that trough forms in the fall, the ridge will show up in the winter. And I think you see that trough in the west right now. Don't be surprised if that's exactly where the ridge shows up as winter progresses.
Man, and they're getting hit hard too in the West right now. I know that the ski resorts are loving it, and yeah. I've got a feeling that if your forecast verifies, their happiness may come to an end a little early.
Well, I think averages. This is the big part of the year. Now, of course, even if it's normal winter weather. The other thing too, this could back significantly further west, all the way into the Rockies. I mean, this could not worry, but the forecast may turn out to be even more widespread cold. But I'm sitting here going, look, how far can you go from this far out? If you indicate what we're indicating to people And if you're one step ahead of the rest of the pack, I think you're in good shape.
All right, so you mentioned, and I got to wrap things up here, but you mentioned you're following the analogs of the winter 09 and 10, 02 and 3. That's correct, right? Those analogs?
Yeah, that's yeah, 06, 07, and 14, 15 are in there, but they're secondary. If let's say you say, hey, Joe, make a forecast today, I would double weight both of those.
Okay. Just to let you know, I went back and I looked, and 09, 10, 02, 03, here in Little Rock at least, it was weighted with the heaviest of snows in February, and we ended up with almost 9 inches, 09, 10, and then almost 7 inches, 02, 03. So and those were pretty snowy. That's snowy.
We have to go double or triple.
What's that?
Imagine in August for 3 times. If you put out a forecast in August for 3 times the normal amount of snow, those are variances that statistically you have to look against.
Right.
But,
well, Joe, again with weatherbell.com.
Much greater than the downside.
We've been able to get through the interview without too many technical glitches, but I don't know what's going on with Skype. But anyway, weatherbell.com, it's a great site, and you can see Joe's column there free on Saturdays, I believe. You can get that for free. But if you want to get his daily updates.
The daily update is free every day, but okay. I like it. During the weather ball, I mean, it's like 75 cents a day or whatever. But we'll show you things. We'll show you the why before the what, so that you can see what's going on with things. Rather, I mean, once something starts happening, everybody's in there. You look at stuff and compete. Of course, if you're in Little Rock, you make sure you watch Channel 7 because Todd's on that.
There you go, Joe. Thank you.
You.
Again, and it's true. At Weatherbell, you can get the heads up. Usually, you start hearing Joe talking about stuff, and then all of a sudden, it starts making its round of social media a few days later. But anyway,
when I show up on Fox, it's usually that everybody knows it by that time. When I showed up here, that big storm up the East Coast on January 5th. I was mailing those guys from early December saying it was going to get really cold, really bad. And what I did was, okay, that's a nice storm. There's going to be a big thaw coming. So I'm going to move to the next thing. It's frustrating in this industry because what I want to do is look at the next thing, and what the industry wants to do is talk about what's happening now. And when it's obvious, well, anybody could come on and say, hey, whatever. Yeah. By the way, I'm glad we got through this interview because my battery is down to 4%. My computer's about to crash.
All right. Well, then let's go wrap it up again with weatherbell.com. Great information from Joe and Joe DeLeo, and as well as the models. If you love looking at data and just it's information overload these days, but it's good stuff. It's entertaining and it's great to look at the GFS operational 16 days out and dream. But I'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much, Joe.
Enjoy. All right, enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got. God bless you.